Hello there and good afternoon, you wonderful people. So, someone very recently assessed as a danger to the British public has been released from jail. Yes, the guy who is claimed to have radicalised Salman Abedi, the Manchester bomber, is being set free from the East Yorkshire Full Sutton prison. With GB News reporting that Abdal Rauf Abdallah, 31, a childhood friend of Abedi, was freed from East Yorkshire's HMP Full Sutton on Tuesday after his sentence came to an end. Despite warnings that he still poses a high risk of serious harm to the public. And while we're setting him free, we learn that 6 suspected members of the proscribed Kurdistan Workers' Party have been arrested today in a series of raids at 8 addresses across London as part of a counter-terrorism operation. We really have become a honeypot for certain types, haven't we? Now, The Guardian back in 2016 referred to Abdallah as a Libyan refugee, and that he moved to the UK with his family as refugees in 1993. But I can find no evidence of any deportation order, nor any attempt to do so. Probably because his birth year was on or around that time. Would there be any point trying to get that one through the courts anyway? Which court would even dream of deporting him these days? And the establishment would never try to do a Tommy Robinson on him by trawling for other past misdemeanours to hang on him, would they? And then keep him locked up on remand until the court case, would they? Anyway, Abdallah had already been set free in 2020 but recalled to prison for breaching his licence in 2021. And just 2 months ago, a parole board panel said they were not satisfied that he no longer posed a risk to the public and accordingly did not direct his release. And that was just 2 months before his official release date. That's despite him now being a paraplegic and confined to a wheelchair after being injured fighting in Libya. So even in a wheelchair, he is deemed to be a danger. And despite anti-radicalisation classes in prison. So he's still a risk to us? Maybe radicalised terrorists no longer have the right sentences. Maybe they need longer sentences. Now, before I bring in Richard on this one, for completeness, Abdul Rauf's brother, Mohammed Abdallah, was later sentenced in 2017 to 10 years custody, 5 years on licence and subject to notification requirements of 30 years after travelling to Syria to fight for IS. And he was helped by his brother Abdul Rauf, who sent him some money. Oh, and if you haven't already done so, please do sign up to the pledge. Link in the descriptions box below. Anyway, Richard.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, here's a question. Why are we having this conversation where we are talking about a man such as this who is free to do harm again? I mean, he's already done harm, we know that, because he inspired the Manchester bomber. So, I mean, let me quote the BBC here for some context. According to a report detailing the Parole Board's decision in September, the panel accepted the inquiry's finding that Abdullah had played a significant role in radicalising the Manchester Arena bomber, although there is no evidence that he was involved in the attack itself or had any pre-knowledge of it. Yes, no evidence. Let me continue from the BBC. His probation officer, prison officer and psychologist still did not support his release, with assessments determining he posed a high risk of serious harm to the public. Okay, I'll continue. Psychologists concluded Abdallah continues to show levels of engagement with extremism and intent to commit terrorist-related offending. A plan for his release was presented to the panel and was also deemed not robust enough to manage him once he left prison. It added there was insufficient evidence to suggest there had been any change in his extremist mindset. Right, okay. So is the establishment allowing the cultivation of an environment where terrorist attacks can take place? Are they? Is there something afoot here? And I'm sorry if this sounds a little conspiracy theory-ish, but here we are, hot off the heels of Southport, and persons who are being identified as sort of significant risk by the system allowed to walk the streets of Britain. How much will it cost to keep close tabs on this person so that he doesn't incite or cause another Manchester Arena or another Southport? But this is His Majesty's justice system, though, we must remember, and I don't see anyone else's emblem above the court doors, and I don't see anyone else's emblem upon the caps of our police officers either. I mean, who are we to question the release of this man after he served his jail term? I mean, he has done all that was required of him, hasn't he? You know, his term was up, yet he has been released, even though there was concerns. There we go, Jeff.
Yes, and I thought, well, if he's been radicalized, because he has served his sentence, and the last thing we actually do want is a government that can turn around and just at the flick of a switch or flick of a pen, sign someone back into prison without a judge or whatever, and no crime committed, because otherwise they would turn around and do that permanently to a Mr. Robinson. You know that's what they would do, because
True.
he is a massive threat to the establishment, a political threat. And this particular chap, the Abdullah, is merely a physical threat to the rest of us, if you get my drift. And there's a big difference between the two as far as the establishment's concerned. Anyway, I did look into this, saying if he's been radicalized, is that therefore a mental illness? Should he be locked up somewhere for a mental illness? And the answer, as far as I can tell, is no. It seems that there is no single pattern or diagnosis for such a thing. So someone deemed not mentally ill who is assessed as a radical and a danger to society can wander freely about until they possibly reoffend. Now, shoplifting is one thing, letting people out to shoplift and then lifting them again and putting them back. But possible murder and carnage? However, his sentence is complete, and we do not want to give politicians the power to keep anyone they dislike in jail, as I've said. And that's the worrying thing for me. Our justice system seems set up to just allow this sort of thing. And the one thing that does surprise me is, why is radicalization, if radicalization is a thing, then why isn't it deemed as some sort of mental effect or disturbance or whatever you want to call it that could justify keeping someone in? But there again, you see, they could do that to other people as well. They could do that to anyone off the street. Lift them, we think you're a bit up there, bang, you're in forever, without due process. So I think this needs looking at. This really seriously does need looking at when people have been radicalized.
Okay, so what happens then if there's another Southport or another Manchester Arena? And what happens then? Because people like this are free to roam our streets, or well, influence people, I should say, in a more significant way. I mean, he doesn't actually have to leave his house. He can influence people now. He has full access to the internet. He would be in contact with, I'm sure, a plethora of people. And then we could say, oh, but our security services will be watching them. Oh, really? They can do that, can they? I'm not so sure. There are ways of hiding things, the dark web, etc. I mean, I don't know what restrictions will be placed upon him, if any. I mean, he's a free man, isn't he?
Yeah, I think there are things that if the courts have ordered it previously, that they can impose, like notification where you are, what you are. And they have tried in the past to limit people's access to the internet when they're out. But I don't know how nowadays, or if there's even an order of that sort on this guy at all. I've seen no mention of it, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's a very sad situation where our country, this is what Britain's like now. This is 21st century Britain, where,
Well,
as I said,
it's
you just come,
it's
come
not
away
so
from
much. Yeah, it's not so much the actual law and the sort of the fact that we've got to go through these machinations. It's the fact that we've got them here in the first place, and that they've been allowed to be radicalized. Someone
Yeah.
comes here as a child at the age of 1, 2, 3, or 4. I mean, as I said, there's the Abdullah brothers who came here very young. So why didn't they go through our education system? What's happened here? What is our education system so woke that it now lets anybody teach anything, and radicalizes our children? Or weren't they taught by the system? I don't know. There's a lot of questions here as to how people can be radicalized in this country. And I think we all know the answer to that, why it is.
So there's people who are, multi-generational, what you might call naturalized Brits, who are, and this has nothing to do with ethnicity. They could be white, they could be black. It doesn't matter, but they are exposed somehow to this form of radicalization.
Yeah.
And that says a lot about the country, that such a thing could be permissible. If it were, and you guys say, "Oh, that's not permissible." Well, it's happening, so therefore it's permissible. The state is doing nothing to stop it and prevent this from happening.
But
do our children have to pay the price for this insanity? Because let's face it, this is all about community relations, not upsetting people. Because I know that a certain community could be much more involved in the prevention of this than it is. I mean, where is this radicalization taking place? Much of it.
Well, I think the authorities know exactly where this is happening.
Yeah,
and they put people on watch lists. They tell the politicians, and the politicians throw up their hands in horror and go, "We can't do anything about that because there's an ism involved, or a phobia, or whatever else it is." They would rather that people were killed in this country than to deal with the problem head on. And I'll tell you what, the British public would be behind them if they dealt with this problem head on, instead of trying to gaslight us and tell us there is no problem and that we should all go home, shut up and say nothing. Yeah.
There's a good point here by Razor Sharp Man. The problem with the British, you just talk too much. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
we don't do a lot done, do we? I mean, that's something we should look in the mirror on that one, all of us. We don't seem to be doing it. We put up with it. And that's it. That's it.
Yeah. Yes, I understand this, but you have to talk these things through to try and find out where the general consensus is. And the trouble is with when you don't talk about it, when you're forced not to talk about it, you can't find that consensus, and that's what they're hoping. They are hoping that we will just give up and just take whatever is handed to us. And it's about time we said no and started talking about these things.
Well,
there you go, Michael John Dennis. They would sooner arrest anyone for talking about it. Of course they would. It's far easier to get hold of a peaceful person who sits and writes something and arrest them and bundle them through the courts and into a nasty prison than it is to deal with the actual problem. Now, I'm not saying that the intelligence services don't have the kahunas or the abilities or the strength to do it. What I'm saying is that the politicians will not let them do their job, as far as I can see. I don't think they're allowed to do their job. I really don't.
Well, no. I'm surprised. I just read all that out from the BBC. I mean, I'm surprised the BBC aren't there telling us, he was a choir boy in Doctor Who. Yeah.
One of the comments here is we used to tell kids not to talk to strangers, but now we're sort of basically encouraging them to go out and talk to strangers. Oh, it's an ism if you don't. And look where that's getting us. Yeah. No,
In fact, we were being encouraged to talk to the strangest stranger. Our children are being encouraged to talk to the strangest stranger they can find on the streets.
Yeah. Yes, and it's and it's just unacceptable. Children should they're too young to be able to make some of these decisions for themselves. And when you fill classrooms full of things other than teachers, you get my drift, who show them all different weird things, then you've got the children are just soaking it all up.
Yes. I mean, yes, our children are exposed to some very strange things right now. But I mean, I know that, let's say, multiculturalism is being enforced upon our children. Now, it has been, this is one of the biggest mechanisms of brainwashing, is the enforcement of woke ideology via, critical race theory, etc. These are things that every child should know now, of course. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I mean, this indoctrination must be a good thing. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening. And we must trust our systems. We must trust our education system. We must trust our judiciary. We must trust all of it. We must not question, must we?
Exactly. And if we do question, we rightfully come under the stare of the internal intelligence services. What a country. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's about time we stop doing it.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah. We're actually living in the movie plot of V for Vendetta. That's why I got the red curtain, by the way. Yes.
Or worse, Equilibrium. I remember that film, Equilibrium. Yeah, very good film, actually. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. This country is messed up. Yeah. I can't trust any of our politicians to really work for the country. Too many of them have got massive, great big egos, and it's all about them, or they're too weak, or they stumble into politics and then don't carry it through. They get Westminsterized. Once they get in there and the civil servants surround them and say, this is how you do it, you must do it this way, you must follow all of this. Yeah, they just need to speak their mind and stop being bullied by all these people.
Yes, I've told you a few times over the years, Jeff, that maybe some good people do go into politics, and as soon as they get into power, as soon as they enter Downing Street, for instance, Tony Blair, maybe he was a good man once. Maybe not. Anyway, but they get into power, they sit there, think, yes, we've done it, we're going to change the nation, and then there's a knock on the door, and let's say, Mr. or Mrs. Blair or whoever, Prime Minister, follow me. So they go for a little walk, and there's a little secret room in 10 Downing Street, and they go, and it's all very dimly lit, and all they can see in the back is the glow of a cigar as somebody has a drag on it. And they can, right, and sit down, Prime Minister. Now, this is what you are going to do. And the Prime Minister says, oh, no, I'm not doing it. I've made my decisions. I was elected on these points. And then the drag on the cigar illuminates the room a little bit more, and there's two horns that appear. No, this is what you are going to do. And therefore, that's what happens. Yeah. Sorry, a little bit of a walk down the imagination of Richard there.
Yeah, not very good walk down the imagination. No, but I get where you're coming from. There are because every election, I keep saying it, every single election we have, we could change every single MP in the House of Commons, but we do not change one single civil servant. We don't change one single member of the House of Lords. We don't change any of the quangos that hold the real power and the money. That's the problem. We've allowed those to become infested with anti-UK internationalists, and we need to sweep them all out. We need to sweep them all out.
The swamp needs to be drained. Yes, the entire swamp. I mean, we're hoping that there'll be some kind of inspiration taken by more people in Britain from the election of Donald Trump, and I'm hoping that he is going to do it. I mean, he's got a fantastic team behind him. You've got Elon Musk, RFK Jr. It's like, wow, okay. But that's what we need here as well. We need the whole lot, the civil service, the honours list. That's something that I find absolutely repulsive, because I know for a fact some people on the honours list who are no better than Savills to this day. And it's a very dodgy system, it is. And and our politicians themselves, they're just well, most of them are just have self-interest as their guiding light, not the betterment of this country and their own personal sort of university-led ideologies, be it left-wing or right-wing. Because to be honest, the right-wing, it doesn't even have an identity anymore. What is right-wing anymore? What is
No,
left-wing?
the
It's all the
right
same
is
bloody thing.
yeah, the right wing in Westminster, in politics in general, is just a bit to the right of Marxism. That's all it
Yeah,
is. You
yeah.
know, it's just a bit further to right, and that makes them unacceptable to the left. You see, and they can argue about that. Basically, what they're arguing is how much left are we going, and then everyone else has to just suck it up because we've
Yeah.
allowed them to just take over everything.
Well, as I said, going back to the original point of this video, though, mate, is the fact that, yes, it's fine for somebody to walk the streets who was an inspiration to one of the worst terrorist attacks on British soil, if not the worst, where lots of children, unfortunately, lost their lives. And he is now free to roam and do whatever. I mean, I can't say that's a bad thing, because this is British justice, and we mustn't question His Majesty's justice system, must we?
No,
No.
of course not.
Comply and be good little citizens. Pay your taxes and do as you're told. Yeah.
Yes, anyway, I just thought I'd bring you this rather sort of depressing news. And just remember, at the end of the day, he has served his sentence. And natural justice should dictate that once you've served your sentence, you can walk free. However, if they are a continuing menace to the rest of us, does that mean they've got some unbalance somewhere that needs to be addressed? Is there nothing that you just let them walk out and that's it, is it? And then you have to spend millions every year watching them. I don't know. Anyway, that's as much as I've got to say about this. So, yeah. Anyway,
Yes,
Richard, anything extra?
well, just, please like and subscribe, like this video, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, we'll be back later on, probably either at 4 o'clock or at 6 o'clock, something along those sort of lines.
We have another story here.
Yeah, and the thing is, at the end of the day, many of you will be very angry by what's happened here, but we must all be good boys and girls, not get too angry. Just think, if I don't agree with this, is there a political party out there that will meet my anger and represent me to change the country? And that's what we have to do. We have to comply, but at the same time, focus our anger towards a positive thing. We need to channel it into something very positive, and that is getting behind a political party or something like the pledge, which is incredibly important. One of the questions asked, what's the difference between the petition and the pledge? The petition is for a general election that's going around at the moment, but the pledge, it is, I describe it as a modern day chivalric code about how one lives one's life, but is also should be adopted by politicians and by political parties. It is a standard by which we must live to. It's a document. It's the modern day Magna Carta, you might say. So what's the email address there, Jeff?
Well, the URL is thepledge.org.uk.
Yes.
So just put that into your search bar and it will find it straight away. And I will say that Ben Habib has signed up to it. So has Andrew Bridgen, and so has Peter Whittle, amongst many others. And they all just describe it as common sense, a common sense document, common sense that this country has let drop. Its politicians have tried to drag us away from living our common sense lives in Britain with its heritage, and they got they had no hesitation in signing up to it. So it's well worth just having a look, have a read, and just think. And if you can't see anything wrong with it, then sign up to it. And the more people that sign up to it, the better, much better. Yeah.
Yes, and the thing is, talk about it with people. Tell people this is something to be proud of. These are a set of principles. What's wrong with, once again, having a set of principles under which to live by, like a modern day chivalric code, like how the knights of old used to live. They had a code about their behaviour. What's wrong with having a good sort of code, a moral compulsion? What is wrong with that? Is it such a bad thing in this day and age where anything goes? Secularism says, oh, it doesn't matter what happens. Everything's equal. There's no right or wrong. There is just life. It's just an existence. Here we are floating around in the universe. We are nothing. We're just atoms that have just come together by happenstance. Yes. Well, actually, no. I think we need to be really thinking about having a moral backing to our society. Backbone, I should say. Yeah, there we go. I'm done.
Anyway, thank you very much for that, Richard.
Yeah.
And I'm say that have a good afternoon, everybody, and we will be back later. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him. Goodbye.
Goodbye.